So how you been?
Yeah, it's been an interesting summer fall for obviously all the crap shit, but more important, well, what I've been really focused on is now I'm not going to talk a lot about the transition necessarily, but I'm really focusing on this year. Well, this is what I am going to talk about is the writing of the book.
Yes.
I've been spending a lot of time on educating myself with regards to option trading and value investing, and just trying to create as many, like an additional couple of sources of revenue is really part of it. So, multiple streams of income, and
very important.
The next phase in my investing life kind of thing. So
So we might as well just jump right in. We just kind of jump in. I mentioned what you sent to me. I put it as a text. I put it, it's part of the caption. I don't really mention it.
Okay, well, I just thought you'd want to introduce me somehow. So
sure. Oh yeah.
However you want to introduce me is totally cool. So,
as the top realtor investor in the Durham area.
Fair enough. Whatever you wanted to say is totally good with me. So, but no, that sounds great. So I got your questions, and so I may glance down every once in a while. I made a couple. Holy crap! It's just. Can you hear that?
No. What's going on?
Okay. It was. I just took the dog for a walk and then put him in the vehicle just because he barks a lot, and now we're talking about like monsoon storm right now, and I see blue sky, which is
that's crazy.
It is
that's crazy.
It is. I'm telling you, it's like a tropical storm out there right now. It's unbelievable. It's on an angle. Wow.
Wow.
I literally was just out there 15 minutes ago taking the dog for a quick walk. I like to, because he's an asshole, basically, is the short answer. And as soon as I get on a podcast, when
you let him go, you don't give him enough attention. You're in Whitby or Ajax?
Whitby, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's okay. That's a middle. That's great.
Yeah, it's like honestly, there's major wind right now. I can hear the wind blowing behind me here. It's crazy. Like I was telling you, just a few minutes ago, I was walking, and I was thinking, oh, what a nice day, bike ride.
Yeah, if aliens landed next month, you just blend right in. It'd be like part of the year that we're having everything.
Yeah, it's something. So it's been an eventful year, and a lot of good things for me. Like I made, obviously, I think we all in March and April kind of, especially March, we all kind of just put our life on pause. But I made a conscious decision in the spring to make, again, nobody knew how long this was going to be, but I thought, you know what, by the summer, if I felt I'd lost out in the, I didn't take advantage of the spring, I felt I would regret it. And
so how did you keep yourself busy in the spring?
Well, that's when I finished off the first copy of the book, actually.
Wow. So you mean you didn't jump into the Netflix binging or the drink? Like, it seemed like the alcohol consumption increased by like 50%.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I did eat a lot, and
okay.
Again, I know the expression COVID-15. I actually I didn't gain 15 pounds, but I gained about 12 pounds.
Right.
And I thought, you know what, this is just too much. I just can't handle it. And but yeah, and I did. We do watch more TV than we did before, but I like TV, so I don't regret it. But when I was in my work mode, I absolutely focused on.
You stay productive.
Productive, yeah. And one of the things that I do on an awfully regular basis is like every day I make notes in my journal as far as my plans for the following day. It's plans for world domination. And,
love it.
And so every single day I make notes of things that I'm going to do this day and cross them off. And
wow, love it.
It's old school, but you know what? I have to do that in order to, and again, it keeps me moving. And if for some reason I procrastinate and don't knock off that in a day, I I'll rewrite it the next day, the next day, the next day until I finally do it. So
Wow.
I don't want it to go away. So once I put it on my book, I do it.
Okay, so often I talk about how to get peak performance. This is amazing. This is something that people can use. I mean, some people have, is it like the 5-minute journal of some sort?
Yeah, well, I can tell you honestly, what it does is the simple answer is it allows me to sleep better at night, because what I do before I go to bed the day before, almost inevitably, is I make sort of a bullet point notes of the things I need to do next day. That way I can, when I put my head down to sleep, I know I've sort of taken everything out of my brain, so I'm not sort of saying, oh crap, I forgot about this, I forgot about this. And so you're thinking about it all night. But if it's in your book, you know you're going to do it because it's there. And yeah, it's daily is, just. And
how long you been doing this?
20 some odd years.
Wow. So it's effective. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's like, honestly, sometimes you put in things just for the sake of, like, there's almost a bit of a sick pleasure about crossing things off the list. So God,
I know what you mean.
No, I don't do that.
You savor every moment. Oh yeah, getting it done.
Yeah, you want to make it so that, like, now there's certain things that are like, sometimes it's as simple as having a phone call with a client or something like that, and so I'll put little tasks that I need to do. Sometimes they're bigger projects as well, but they all get a line, and
it has to be written. You can't just put it in Google Calendar or something.
And it's funny. I've had this conversation with a lot of people that are a lot younger than me, I think, and I find that when I put it on, well, first of all, if I have to put it on, like, typing it out, I tend to not do it. I tried doing that because I was, we're entering the 21st century, and I said, you know what, I should actually put it there. I never did it, and so I actually ended up picking up a binder like this, and it's actually, it's a bound thing, and so I make notes on it as well, and I've got all my previous ones since I became a realtor, essentially, and so sometimes I make little interesting comments and notes, and I also have a second book that I keep that is truly my journal of everything I learn when I go to meetups or any kind of education. And
this is valuable. This is great.
I have my own thing for that, and like again, I'm not doing it for anyone else. If I get something that I feel needs to be that's already been printed, I'll then just simply make it in a smaller version and then just glue it on here. So I've got some of this stuff as well, and so this is
one book is the to-do list.
Yeah,
one is event, and the other one is more about what you learned.
Yes, that's right. Okay. And this one is titled "Do More of What Makes You Happy." And again,
well put. For sure.
It's a simple message, but at the same time, I like to do that, and I will refer back to it from time to time, and that's been effective for me over the years as well. And again, I know that it's a little hokey, but at the same time, I put in like my own version of a vision board.
Love it. I think this is critical for success. I don't think success just happens by mistake. It has to be visualized, focused on constantly.
Yeah. And again, I do. I also have a little message for what it's worth right on my in my medicine cabinet. I open it up every day before I comb my hair, and even if I don't really read it every single day, I know it's there, and it just keeps me on track, because the reality is, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, you can finish a month without necessarily knowing that you've really accomplished anything, or you can do something where you've actually made a couple of differences. So what I've really focused on in the last couple of years, more so than ever before, is instead of being the be all end all for everyone, I'm actually probably saying no to more things than I've ever said before, and I'm trying to stay on point, on mission, and if something is not in my moving me forward, then the other thing I look at as well is am I helping someone else reach their goals? And if the answer is not really for that, and not really for not really helping me out, then why the heck am I doing it, sort of thing. And so I found myself, I would, we'll talk about it. I'm sure you're going to ask me questions about books that I read, but there's a book called E-Myth Revisited.
Yes.
And honestly, I never use the term life-changing, but it definitely was an aha moment for me, because just like any young business person or even middle-aged business person, you inevitably think to yourself, say, well, for me to take the time to explain it to you, I might as well just do it myself. And you've heard that probably a billion times. And maybe the first time that's probably the case, but it was in that book they were talking about something along the lines of you let them run with it, and you continue, and they're going to make a few mistakes. They may not do it quite as well as you, but let them go with it. Don't be the block. And actually, another one, 4-Hour Workweek, has got a lot of. I may be combining the two messages a little bit, so I apologize on that. But it's the same sort of idea. Is let them, don't stand in the way of them excelling in it. Let them take it to task, and at the end of the day, if they succeed, great. If they fail, try to coach them and get them to the better level. And if they continue to fail and you can't train them, then obviously you've got the wrong person. And that's been huge for me, because honestly, there were so many things, like paperwork is not my thing. It's not.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
And it's just not. And so we really focused on like, I used to do it, and I would be the roadblock in the system. Like, my admin people were fantastic, and they were just waiting on me. And I'd say, yeah, I'll get to it. And of course, even if I put it on my list, it was always the one that I'd never do that.
So let me ask you, when should an entrepreneur actually hire extra help, or an assistant of some sort, or a receptionist or administrator?
Well, no question, you want to have someone. One of the things that was a bit of an aha moment for me is you try to put a lot of the things that you do as if you're getting paid per hour to do it, or what it would take to have someone to replace it. And so, like, doing the admin, again, when I finally did it, I was actually pretty good at it, but I could hire someone for less than $20 an hour to do every bit as good as me, and it actually turns out significantly better than me. So hire that out. And specifically to investment properties, this was something that was, again, because I'm a good analyst of I look back on previous months and previous years and see where I performed, where I sort of dropped the ball. I found, after I bought my first few investment properties, that every time I bought an investment property, my real estate business just fell off the map. And the reason for that is I was my own GC in.
You mean you're as a realtor, working as a realtor?
My realtor business failed or suffered when my real estate portfolio added a new property that needed a major renovation. I was the GC. I was the one doing a lot of the work, and again, I ended up finding someone who was a better GC than me, and it wasn't always the same person, but there was always somebody who's more skilled at it than I am, that I could pay $50-$60 an hour. But if I can sell an extra property or two, I could make $10,000, $20,000. So
it pays for itself.
Exactly, and I enjoy doing that more. And so
what do you delegate now that you weren't delegating in the past, besides the paperwork?
I'm sure my neighbors identify us as being lazy, but delegate as much as possible. We don't clean our house. We have house cleaners to do it. We don't clean our pool. We have a pool company that does it.
That makes sense.
We don't mow our lawns. We don't shovel our driveways. we have people that do it. We had people that were coming to a couple of our rental properties and shoveling snow, and meanwhile here's me, you know, breaking ice and doing that. And I said, what's wrong with this picture? I said, my freaking tenants are getting their driveway shoveled. Why am I not? And you know, I learned probably about 8 years ago or so that I love a freshly cut lawn. I just don't love doing the lawn cutting. So you know, again, those are personal things that anyone can do. And you might think, well, again, how long does it take to mow the lawn? Well, 20, 30 minutes. How long does it take to shovel the driveway? If it's not icy, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But it's also putting you in the right mental state so that, you know, like honestly, even if I'm just simply downstairs using that time while they're shoveling my driveway and I'm playing pinball, that's okay, because then I can sort of sit down and like I focus on, again, whether it be my education with regards to value investing or doing a podcast or actually, yeah, someone's closing our pool today. Well, assuming the rain doesn't stop or it does stop. And I'd rather be talking to you than closing the pool. And so it's just, it's
allocating your time to, your time is the most valuable asset. It's not necessarily the money, it's the time. That's what we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
We'll recreate more time. So it's important to do the task. I think that's what you're saying. That elevates you to gain, to give more value to the world and do things that you particularly enjoy doing.
100%. And you know, again, it's you know, this year obviously because of everything that's been going on, I haven't been traveling as much. But,
so besides selling houses, writing books, what else do you enjoy, Michael?
I do love traveling. I really do, and I love learning and finding new things and experiencing new things. I find myself a bit more of a bucket list traveler. Like I literally do have a bucket list of things I want to accomplish, and I look back and I say, okay, I've got to do this, I got to do that, and I'm a huge sports fan, especially baseball. I've traveled around the world actually watching baseball games.
Neat.
And so I've got 5 major league stadiums that I have to see still, and I've seen everything else. I've seen about 11 retired stadiums. I've seen games in Cuba and Japan and Puerto Rico and
cool.
And so that's certainly one of my passions.
Because I speak to a lot of realtors or a lot of investors, and there are different phases. Some are in the growth phase, some are just starting off, some are still growing, but they've got a portfolio. I get the impression that you're more at the preserving the wealth phase and sustaining it for long term and enjoying life. Is that?
Yeah, it was a hard decision actually a few years ago. I joined the Real Estate Investment Network, which is if somebody's not familiar with that program, in my opinion, it's the most complete education that I've ever learned. And as far as a you know, a defining moment in my real estate journey, joining REIN is certainly, it's a landmark moment for me. And
are you still part of REIN?
Yeah, I am. As a matter of fact, you know, for what it's worth, I was the 2019 Investor Realtor of the Year. So
congratulations.
So yeah, it's my second time winning that. But joining REIN, and sorry, there's somebody behind you sort of sneaking in there. Take a look.
Oh yeah, it's okay. He's a buddy.
So, sorry, there was somebody that was just sort of.
I think it's the cat. Maybe it's the dog.
No,
it's Noah.
It was a human. It's one of these things that, you know, it's
yeah.
Sorry,
walk that off.
I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about REIN and how you joined REIN?
Yeah, so I made a decision early on. Again, I set a number, I set a goal, and my goal was to buy at least one investment property for 10 straight years. And I did that really on year 2 or so when I was doing it. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know I didn't know if I was going to do it, but that was my goal, was I was never the guy who was going to end up, like there's some people that are in the real estate investment network that they buy more properties than I change underwear. Like it's crazy how they say, oh, I just bought 7 properties this week, and I said, what? How? And that was never my goal. That was never my objective. I wanted,
it seems as if the more, the better. It seems seems to be the philosophy, the approach, and I get the sense that you don't necessarily share in that philosophy. More is better.
Well, 2 things. One, I never wanted to become a full-time real estate investor, and not that, honestly, a lot of my friends are full-time real estate investors, so I certainly don't begrudge that, but that's, you are for that. But that was never my goal, was to do that. And I always wanted, quoting Don Campbell, who is my mentor, I wanted real estate to fund my life, not run my life. And I wanted it to, I didn't necessarily want to buy properties in tertiary markets that haven't seen appreciation since Trudeau was prime minister. I'm talking about the first one, not the second one. And I wanted to buy in primary Greater Toronto area or on the outskirts type properties that were like one of the quotes that I often say is, I want to buy a quality property in a quality neighborhood so I could find quality tenants and then make quality profits. That's been my objective.
Can you share where you invest?
Yes, I invest in Oshawa, Whitby, Curtis, and Cobourg is my sort of secondary market that I've done very well in. And I would invest in Peterborough as well. That's another market that our team works in, but it's not necessarily, I don't want to spread myself too thin. Again, that's against what I want to do. So that's been kind of and even within those markets, there's certain pockets of areas that I prefer. So, you don't necessarily need to, I see some people that are basically they're constantly, where they buy is where they see an opportunity. There's millions of opportunities.
Opportunities everywhere. You can open people's eyes. There's opportunities everywhere.
There really is. And so you don't necessarily need to buy one property in southwestern Ontario, another property in northern Ontario, and I see some, and then the next one's in Calgary. It's
like the shining item syndrome. One there, over there. It's like,
yeah, that's right.
Like focus a bit.
And that's what it is. And so another mentor of mine once said, to make your business larger, you should make your focus smaller.
Good one.
And that was one of the things that when I became a realtor, I was one of the first, at least that I knew of, that really went all in working with investors. And my website, all my media, all my social media, was all focused towards working with investors. And I know a lot of realtors, when I just got going, really kind of thought it was a strange move, because I was segmenting myself so much. He said, well, and honestly, if you look at 99% of realtor web pages, they've got, like, in the bottom right hand corner, it's, oh, we work with investors too, kind of thing. And for me, I was all in. And now I kind of said I work with residential people too, but 80-90% of my business was working with investors. And I use that same mindset with regards to investment properties. Is I didn't want to chase the shiny object all over the place. I wanted to become an expert in 1 or 2, or most case scenario 3 areas across Ontario, and that's where I was going to go. And I've been given all sorts of great opportunities outside of Ontario and the United States, and in Alberta, BC. I've been a really interesting opportunity a number of years ago out there, and I said no. I'm not an expert there. I can't. I'm depending on other people way too much, and I don't care what the potential cash flow numbers are. I don't know that area, and so that's really,
that makes sense. I like what you're saying, because I find a lot of success is dependent on 2 abilities. Number one being focused, and as they say, as you were saying. Who was that mentor who mentioned that? If you want to focus on your business.
Yeah, he's one of the top real estate realtor coaches in North America. His name is Brian Buffini, Buffini, and even if you're not a realtor, you're someone who just wants to build a business working by referral. He would be someone that's absolutely worth listening to.
That's really good. The other element I find so essential in any type of success is discipline. Have you found yourself in positions where you've had to discipline yourself in order to reach what you were looking to get?
100%. Like, well, that's actually goes back to my journaling or making notes it was the setting of goals. Again, that's something Brian Buffini kind of taught me, was the setting of goals helps keep you on track. And, again, I think, I don't know anybody who in the month of March 2020 met all their goals. We all sort of, fell off the wagon. But the people who are going to say at the end of 2020 that it was a good year are the ones that stopped focusing on blogs and in social media and
the negativity.
Negativity, focusing on what the U.S. federal government was doing, the Canadian
conspiracy theories,
and focused on what they can control. And
yes.
As much as there are a lot of things that I personally disagreed with what was done. It wasn't relevant. I'm not in a position to be able to change anything. So focusing on what I can control, and then sticking to my 10 things or 5 things to do today, and then building upon that and doing another 5 or 6 things tomorrow. It keeps you on track, and you don't fall to the point where you say, one of the things that at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a month, it doesn't hurt to reflect back and see if it was a winning month. And if it was not a winning month, again, life as we know it doesn't end. You can make it the next month, and if you can make 3 out of the 4 weeks in a month a winning week, you've turned into a winning month. You get 7 or 8 winning months out of 12, you've had a winning year.
I get the sense there's constant reflection on what you're doing and where you're heading. I think that's essential in any type of success. Well, what do you tell people who are just starting off? What do you suggest they do on a regular basis in order to move forward? Besides all the valuable things you've already said.
Yeah. Well, it's, again, this is such a cliche thing, but the first thing you need to figure out is why you're doing this, and what's your why and all this stuff. And there's been a million books written on it of people that are a lot smarter than me, but what the heck are you doing this for? And what do you want to accomplish? What's your goal? I decided 8-10 years ago that I wanted to have true financial freedom by the time I was 55. Like, remember those TV commercials, Freedom 55? Well,
guy driving the boat.
I've been wanting Freedom 55, honestly, for about 25 years, and I just wasn't taking steps to get myself in that position. And in a few years, and I'm going to come back and answer your question in a second. A few years ago, that's when I sort of reversed course and started focusing more on multiple streams of income, so that, like, one of the things that GTA real estate is great for is it provides you with a lot of wealth. What it's not great for is providing you with a lot of cash flow. And it does have that limitation. So if you need the cash flow, then and you don't care so much about building wealth, then maybe GTA real estate isn't the choice for you. But I made the decision that I wanted to build the wealth and then reverse gears and start building the cash flow. So that was my goal. So if I was teaching a younger person, that is, first find out what your goals are and why you're doing all this. And then it's like, honestly, I have a lot of mentors and coaches. One of my I've been doing a weight loss program, and they say, if you weigh 250 pounds today, don't make your goal to be losing 55 pounds and get down to 195. It's losing, let's lose a pound this week. Let's lose 2 pounds this week. By the end of the month, let's lose 5 pounds. And by doing the one bite at a time and just making yourself 1% better today or 1% better this week, if you can do that 52 weeks in a row, you've made yourself significantly better. And
it's amazing. It's amazing what people can achieve. 1 hour every day for the next 10 years. Just 1 hour. Don't underestimate, as you mentioned, don't underestimate what you can achieve in 10 years if you keep on persisting on that one thing.
Well, and you actually used the term 10 years. Actually, up on my wall, I've got a slogan for Bill Gates, and he says people tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And that's one of those things that a lot of people I know do. That is, they come to me and they say, I want to buy a property and I want it to double in value in the next year and also generate me $1,000 a month of cash flow. And I say, no, it's not that.
It's nice to dream, but sometimes it's not all that realistic at times.
Well, yeah, it's again, I find that the people that never take action are the ones that are looking for the grand slam deal is their first deal, and unless they get a grand slam, they're not
budging. They're not. What I tell people is that this isn't a home run. This is maybe a first base move, but eventually you'll get to the home run with it. You got to get on first base.
And that's a great analogy because, honestly, there have been opportunities in the past that I have felt are not just a stand-up double, but certainly a 3-bagger at nothing, maybe even a home run.
Yeah.
And as an investor realtor, again, people always say, well, if it's such a good deal, why don't you buy it yourself? Sometimes I say I'd love to, but I only have a limited. If I had an unlimited amount of money, first of all, I wouldn't be selling real estate to you. I'd be taking them all myself and just keep growing. But we all have a limited amount of resources, and for me, it was to buy 1 or 2 properties a year. I was personally not one. I do joint venture with a few people, and but they tend to be more active partners than I'm joint. We're co-active partners. It's a very it's actually sort of the original joint venture agreements type deals. It's just that it's been sort of changed over the years, where there's an active partner and an inactive partner, and the inactive partner brings all the money. Back in the old days, both guys brought in some money, they'd work together, they'd do a deal. Like, that's the way it used to be. And that's the kind of deals I do. I don't really like working with inactive partners. And so it's never been something I've wanted to do. And that's what's held me back in terms of growing, is I've run out of cash. So the newbies will say, well, why aren't you buying more? And I say, well, I'm happy buying my 1 or 2 properties a year. It's enough to do what I need to do. But the reality is that a lot of these great deals, when they do come up, they still find excuses, and they give a one. If this happens, and then that happens, and then this happens, and then these 17 things happen, I'm gonna lose money.
Negative mindset, such negative mindset. You got to believe in the potential, and if you believe in yourself, most people will. It'll work out in the end.
Yeah, and actually, one thing I want to share with your listeners is just from a long-term experience, is I find that the flippers. Some have done fairly well. Some of them have lost a lot of money. You're dependent upon a lot of factors that you can't control. You're dependent on staff and workers that could let you down. Mm-hmm. When you're in a long-term buy and hold, it curves over, it smooths over any of the ripples along the way. And I've made mistakes that have cost me $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a property, of things that I hadn't anticipated, and I made an error. And and again, if and actually there's one in particular that was the first duplex that I ever bought, and I made mistake after mistake after mistake on that one. But because I held on to the property for years afterwards, the mortgage pay down continued to happen. I was smart where I bought it. It was in Oshawa, and Oshawa is part of the Greater Toronto area, and it has seen the appreciation. So, you know, actually that was one of the few properties that I have sold in the past. And despite every bad thing that possibly could happen, I probably made over $100,000 on this biggest mistake I made. So
I love when people are honest and they speak about the failures and the mistakes that they've done, but they learn from it. So can you share some of those fumbles that occurred, but you still kept on going?
Yeah, it was one that could have broke me, and my first property I bought was actually, I don't know why I bought it necessarily. Actually, I do know why I bought it. Is I was focusing on investment real estate as a profession, as a realtor. And my prior life, I worked for a company called Pet Value Canada, and I used to sell franchises, and besides other things too. And me and my first wife, we actually bought a franchise, and that gave me a lot more credibility, and also I believed in the product at the time as well. So with that mindset, when I started focusing on investment real estate, it just made sense to me to buy a property, and because it would just make me, in my opinion, a better realtor, and certainly offer me more credibility when I went to potential investors. And so you know, I dove in the deep end and bought a sixplex in Coburg that needed a lot of work. And so, you know, and I had a property manager, so I wasn't doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but it was a long process with that property. I quickly discovered that what really drove my problems. Oh, it had a very poor tenant profile. It had very low rents. The units were original. There was flooding into the basement. There were, you know, at the end of the day, everything was fixable, but when you're dealing with multiplex buildings, it does take you years and years to do it. And actually, it was part of my long-term strategy. This was not a buy and hold forever property. And actually, just last week it closed, and I sold it. And I paid, I'll share with you, I paid $359 for it back in 2009. And now I have put a lot of money into it, probably about $200,000 or so over the years. And most of that money came from the cash flow on the property, but I did dip a little bit extra into it. By the end of the day, I sold it for $940. And so again, it's kind of cool to see, like, you know, where else are you going to make $500,000 in a decade as a side hustle? Basically,
yeah.
And it's, you know, like you see these guys or these girls making scrunchies or driving an Uber cab or something like that, or doing Uber Eats, and they're making a couple bucks here or there. I was making $50,000 a year just basically going to see the property 2-3 times a year and having a property manager do most of the work.
That's amazing.
That's pretty good. But anyway, so going back to the one that nearly broke me was a legal 2-unit dwelling in Oshawa. And this property was a bit of a disaster. I was buying it well below market value. There was a tenant that was in place that was the definition of a hoarder, and really, really rough. And so
why'd you buy the property?
Well, again, I wanted to get a legal property. I felt it was undervalued. I was doing this is before I was a REIN member. And again, at the time, most of the legal 2-unit dwellings were selling for mid to high twos. This one I was able to get for $180. And I thought, you know what, I put a little 20-30,000 into it, and you know, I've got myself a great deal. And just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's a great deal. And that's something I learned a long time.
Yes, that's a good one.
And the location wasn't horrible, but it was of all the properties I ever bought, as it turns out, was the worst location of all of them. And I eventually sold this one, not because of, well, mainly because I wanted to focus on certain areas of the city, and that was not one of them. And so, but anyway, so going back, during my final walkthrough, the place was disaster area, and here was me. It was I was walking through the property and saying, "Hey, I'm buying it." And meanwhile, their cat comes from behind the couch or under a table and just bites into the and just grabs my leg and my thigh and starts to, or my calf, and blood starts dripping down and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, you know, and part of me said, I should run right now. I should run. But I said, no.
It was a warning. It was a sign.
It's like when you watch these horror films and you say, why are you going in there? Why? and
that was you.
That was me. I was saying, oh, it'll get better. And so 2 months after I bought the place, I'm walking around the outside, and through the window there was this. It was already now in the spring of 2010, I guess it would have been. No, 2011, I guess. The spring, and the windows are open, and this stench is coming from inside of the house. That like, and eventually I got myself in there, and it was, without a doubt, the worst smelling house I'd ever been in by far. And I owned the damn thing. And so to make matters worse, she wasn't paying rent. The downstairs tenant was barely paying rent. And so the tenants weren't paying rent. The place was falling apart. It was a mess. And so I made the decision at that time. I said, you know what? You owe me 2 months rent or 3 months rent. I forget. It's been so long. Leave, get out. You don't owe any money. Just leave. Because I knew that if I went after her, she was on ODSP or whatever, and she had about three kids living there, and they were all like, they were barely wearing clothes half the time. Like, it was really a sad situation. And so they left a lot of their crap behind. I and my son and friends, we basically started bringing a dumpster, and like, we were wearing masks. It was so bad. Masks before 2020.
So what did you learn out of that experience?
Well, and let me. So it turns out we ended up deciding to do full renovations on the property. We couldn't get the smell out. We were ready to pull the floorboards out, and at the time we also said, you know what? I'm going to redo some of the basement, because I ended up getting rid of the basement tenant too. We ended up saying, well, let's replace the furnace, and we had to move some ductwork around. It was while moving the ductwork around that one of my contractors all of a sudden had some liquid go onto his shoulder and from inside the duct. And so then we started looking into it, and there were literally piles of cat urine and cat feces in the ductwork. And we learned later that it was the children whose responsibility it was to clean the cat litter on a regular basis. And so instead of actually cleaning the cat litter, they were just taking it and throwing it in the duct. And
that's horrible.
And so we ended up having to replace the ductwork, and then the smell started to go away. But it was horrific. And there were so many things that they did poorly. And so eventually and then combine the fact that then I started doing some patchwork on the place, and moisture was coming in, and I decided just to sort of do a little bit of Band-Aid fixes. And then all the work that I did in the basement ended up getting destroyed on a big flood one time. And so I had to do a foundation wrap around the outside.
Wow, that's expensive.
That I spent thousands before the wrap on the basement, and I had to tear all that stuff out and do it again. So I guess the short lessons is do it once and do it right. Finding great locations. It all started with a great location, and I didn't have that. I didn't have a great property. I didn't have a great location. Just because it was cheap was irrelevant. And so I started focusing on better properties and better locations. And then my wife ended up taking over, who's got far better judge of tenant profile than I ever do. I always want to give everybody a chance. I say, oh, come on.
You're a good guy. You're a good guy.
And where she's more of the hard ass, and she's great at it, which is good. But she says, no, this person has a credit score of like 3. Like, no.
So I'd like to go back to your book. Before talking about your book and why you wrote it and what's it all about, can you touch upon the multiple sources of income?
You're breaking up again.
Oh, what are your multiple sources of income, as you mentioned?
Yeah. So the number one thing, of course, has always been my realtor work has been, is a nice little source of revenue. I've also got the cash flow from the properties, and even though I don't have as much cash flow as others do, and the reason for that, just so you know, is as the properties were getting paid down and the values are going up, in many cases I would refinance those properties, take the money out and buy another property and buy another
Smart.
property. So that helped me on the wealth, but it hurt me on the cash flow. So so when some of my listeners or readers sort of question me and they say, you're only getting like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in cash flow a month, and I say, well, yeah, but this is the reason why. So now going forward, I'm not buying more properties, and as the numbers spread out, that'll just obviously enhance my cash flow. So there's the cash flow from the properties. I decided a couple years ago to get involved in private mortgages, and so I've got some funds there that are being loaned out with Olympia Trust and through my RSPs, and that's generating an ongoing revenue source there, and it's as consistent as a paycheck. They just come in every month.
Lovely.
I mentioned earlier that I've been focusing a lot on the sale of options and value investing. So I've got dividends coming in on the companies I own, as well as the options that I'm selling, and I'm making to this point I've been doing a few $1,000s a week that way. I've been netting.
Well done.
And so you get a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit all over the place. And I had set a goal years ago, and again, it was an arbitrary goal. And should I have looked for more? Maybe. Should I have looked for less? Maybe. But my number was $15,000 to $16,000 between my wife and I. We wanted to make in cash flow or dividends or residual income every single month without my realtor business at all. And that's with no car loans. I wanted to be all debt-free and all my bad debts. I wanted to have any debt I've got on my principal residence being paid for by my properties.
Didn't you buy a new car recently?
Yes, I did.
Well, can you share what you bought? It seems like a pretty hot car.
Yeah, 2016 Corvette convertible. And,
sweet ride.
And that's that was part of my 2020 providing me joy sort of scenario.
Lovely.
It is a lovely car, and has all the little bells and whistles that I can possibly ask for. And I find I speed less in it than I do in my wagon, my van, because man, there's nothing else to do, just drive. But in this car, you just sort of sit back, relax. So yeah, I've been, but I realized from a leveraging standpoint, having that vehicle as well as my wife Lisa bought a new SUV. We paid that off in cash, and then so now we have no car debt. We have no mortgage debt on our principal residence. All the properties that have mortgage debt are being paid for by the investments as well. So this $16,000 a month basically is our life having fun, and obviously
great position. That's a great position to be in. I think you've done very well over the years. Well done, very well done. Let's talk about your book now.
Yeah.
Why did you write the book, and why? What's in it? What's it all about?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know if I've even mentioned this social media or anything like that, but by the time yours comes out, I probably will have done that. But the book title is going to be called The Armchair Real Estate Millionaire, and part of my mantra has always been, as I've mentioned before, is to have real estate fund your life, not necessarily run your life.
Mm-hmm.
I basically wrote it for someone to get into real estate and to get their first, second, and third properties. That's we all have read the stories and listened to the podcasts of the guy who has 68,000 properties or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Most of my clients never want to be that guy or that girl. 3 properties, 2 properties, 5 properties can change the fortunes of your life.
Mm-hmm.
and give you that freedom, give you that flexibility without necessarily taking many hours per month to manage. And I actually I interviewed a number of my clients and friends that have, in many cases, less than 10 properties, in some cases, as little as 2 properties. And we called them success stories. And again, the success stories don't necessarily have to be people that are now multimillionaires. One was a young couple that were in their late 20s, and now they own 2 investment properties.
Mm-hmm.
They just had a child just a few years ago, and she kind of identified that how much it would cost to put her kid through school, and she kind of freaked out about that. But then she remembered that in 15, 17 years she could refinance or sell one of her properties, and his entire education's covered. And that gave her a sense of peace of mind.
That's success. That's success, definitely.
100%.
Mm.
Another client of mine who is actually he's 26, 27 now, and he first came to me when he was 23 years old. He had almost no money, but he wanted to become a real estate investor. And so I gave him some help. I introduced him to the right people, and he did a lot of the work himself. But he actually worked.
What kind of work did he do?
He worked at General Motors. He was on the line.
Okay.
And so he worked every frickin' evening and weekend and worked on creating this legal 2-unit suite. When he was done, he was able to refinance it. He lived in 1 unit, rent. Actually, the first time he lived at home, but eventually he moved into one of the units. And then he did it a second time, and then he did it a third time. It took him about 4 years to do the 3 properties, where you see these guys, they get it done in like an hour and a half, or a week and a half. They bring in a crew of 8,000 people and they get it done. He did it all himself. His dad helped him. His mom was a superstar. She's the Kijiji queen. She was finding stuff for virtually nothing. They just had to take it, find it and get it. But at the end of the day, they had 3 legal 2-unit dwellings. They've got 5 tenants, or he has 5 tenants, and he lives in one of the units. GM announces that they were closing down in Oshawa. All of his friends that were mocking him because he wasn't going out with them every evening and weekend are now freaking out because they've lost their job. Meanwhile, he's got a net worth over $500,000 and ongoing cash flow, and he decided to take a few months off and focus on himself. And again, that's the freedom. That's success in my mind.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that one. So you're writing it for those types of people who have 2, 3 properties, who like to just simply have maybe a few more just to change their lives, or even just starting off.
I'm writing it to get up to 3 properties. Obviously, you can use a lot of the skills and mindsets that you're using to get up to 6 or 10 properties for sure. But if you go to the investment groups and you've already got 15 properties, you might find it entertaining and interesting. But I didn't write it for you. I wrote for that whether they be in their early 20s or even one of my success stories. He was in his early 60s when he bought his first investment property, and so that's what I'm writing it for, is the person who wants to get 2 or 3 properties. It might be for a little bit of extra cash flow. It might be for more freedom at retirement, a few extra options. It might be for a legacy for their children or whomever. And one of the things I mentioned over and over and over again in the book is how many hours a month are you dedicating to this venture? And in every one of the interviews, they were saying like 3 hours a month, 4 hours a month, maybe 6 hours a month. We're not talking about it's a side hustle is the best way to describe it. It's a part-time job that will make you a millionaire. And that's the mindset that we tried to convey.
And the title is The Armchair
Real Estate Millionaire. And as a matter of fact, my license plate of my Corvette, by the way, is the word armchair. So
that's quite good. So where do we pick up your book? Where can we get it?
It's going to be coming out in March, is what my editor is now telling me. And it's kind of weird to say, hey, it's my editor.
Are you publishing this yourself?
It's for those who have been in the real estate world for a long time, you might know the name Julie Broad. She wrote the book More Than Cash Flow, which is again one of the aha books that you need to read. And actually, a lot of my mindsets today are very similar to some of the stuff that she wrote back a decade ago or so. And so anyway, she now lives in Southern California, and she owns a company called Book Launchers, and she helps people write nonfiction books, and she sort of takes them from beginning to end and walks them through the whole process. So I've been using Book Launchers from the writing stage through the editing stage to the next stages all the way through, and they're sort of bringing me through the process. And so the short answer is yes, it's considered self-published, but no, it's really not. I've got a lot of people on my team that are helping me take it, because I wouldn't know.
For sure, good support is very important. Now, when it comes out, I want 3 copies.
and I am going to be coming out with a website, which may not be, or it may be out by the time you release this. It's going to be called armchairrealestatemillionaire.com, and you'll have the opportunity to. There'll be pre-order opportunities, and so we're going to be trying to make this into something like, again, it's funny when you start writing the book, you think, oh, it'd be nice if I sell a couple of copies, but the hundreds of hours I've spent on that freaking thing, I want it to be successful at this point now. And, yes. And so why 3 copies? I want to ask you.
Oh, one for myself, and obviously one for a client and a friend.
Excellent. And I'm asking you, hopefully it's a good review, but writing a review as well. I've created a goal for 2021, and again, I can't necessarily control it, but I can maybe influence a little bit, is I want to get 100 reviews in 2021.
Count me in, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll write a review. So where can we find you, Michael?
So my team is called Doors to Wealth Real Estate Group. We're doorstowealth.com is our website. You can certainly reach out to us through that. My email address is michael@doorstowealth.com. And we focus on trying to aid people, getting them to buy investment properties in the Durham region, Northumberland region, which includes Cobourg and Port Hope, and the Kawartha area, which includes basically Peterborough and Lindsay area. And that's our sort of circle of competence. And yeah, we try to help people along the process. And much like what I mentioned with Julie Broad, anybody can help you buy a home, and and everybody knows a realtor. That doesn't necessarily mean that they understand investment real estate. And so we can, besides the actual helping you buy a house, that's easy. But it's also the mindset at the front end. It's building the power team. My wife Lisa has put together an incredible lease, and all of our clients who buy properties with us, we provide that to our clients free of charge. And we even have a joint venture agreement that we provide. Obviously, I'm not making any claims, but it was written by a lawyer and vetted by a few lawyers. But the point is that we try to share all of our knowledge with our people all the way through the process. And because the goal is not to buy one property, it's to get you that 3 properties and get you to that point where you eventually get me a millionaire.
Well done. Well done. Thank you, my friend. I think you've got a lot of value. You're doing very well, and you've helped a lot of people. So keep up the good work. And I'm sure we'll talk to each other again soon.